Jai everyone. And on this special day, which is the beginning of Navaratri in my part of the world in the year 2024, it is a special joy to be in service of the divine light, to teach the Shastra, the deep teachings that make us sovereign, make us blessed with Mother Shakti. Because true sovereignty comes from emotional freedom, intellectual maturity. And this is the work that we are doing through this sadhana of studying the Bhaja Govindam. We begin with verses now enunciated by the students of Adi Shankara. They are reciprocating with like-minded messages, and a dialogue is continuing between master and disciples. And we have the good fortune that a whole culture memorized these dialogues, passed them over generations, and many, many centuries later, we are now repeating these statements. And with the repetition of the statements, with contemplation upon them, bondages are snapping within us, and we are getting a new way to lead a more Devi blessed, Shakti blessed life. No longer at the mercy of our own mind and its whimsical desires. We are now forging a path towards what really matters, which is moksha or liberation of the soul, union with the divine. That is our goal. That is what is represented by Govinda. And we now begin looking at some beautiful verses. We have completed verse 13, and we looked at once again the final reminder of Shankaracharya before he stopped speaking was, he said, Kate Kanta Dhanagata Chinta वातुल किम तव नास्ति नियन्ता काते कान्ता धनगत चिन्ता वातुल किम तव नास्ति नियन्ता त्रिजगति सज्जन संगतिरेका भवति भवार्णव तरणे नौका भवति भवार्णव तरणे नौका. So he jostles our shadow self and calls it Vatul, O fool, O crazy one, who is running here and thither chasing shadows. Oh, crazy one. What's going on? It's almost like Shankaracharya is catching us from the back and rousing us and saying, what's this? What's this obsession with constant ideas on how to be more wealthy and uh, how to have love in your life? Aren't these the two main themes that seem to capture us? And typically, if we look at people who are engrossed in it, typically the ones who are really engrossed in it, their needs are being met. If they just breathe and pause and look, their needs are being met. It's happening. but the greed cannot be met. And as for the beloved, beloveds have come into our life, they have left our life, they are coming, they are going. It's not something to hold on to because everybody's on their own journey. And they are not coming in our life to be beloved to us. They are coming in our life so that we can have the curriculum that we need. So, what's this constant engrossment? And then Shankara says that in the three worlds, not just in this one world, but in the three worlds, this world, the world above, the world below, in the three worlds, there is only one thing that can save you from this madness, from this hypnotic behavior, and that is the company of saintly people from in satsang. Why? Because when we're talking about satsang here, when Shankaracharya is talking about satsang, which he's calling sajjana sangha. Sajjana means saintly, noble. Satsang then was not simply a conglomeration of people gazing at their spiritual teacher or worshipping their spiritual teacher uh, or having some spiritual association with each other or the teacher's physical body, which has become the norm nowadays. Satsang was what is happening right now. It is the sang of the Shastra. It is the satsang of the teacher's higher self when they teach Shastra. So Shastra is the ultimate teacher, and that is the satsang. And why are these people noble? These people are noble because they bring forth that teaching which brings liberation, not bondage for humanity, for the sake of others, for that spontaneous desire to teach this emerges in them at Ishvara's command. So you go be with them, you go be with these noble people. In fact, I remember when I was growing up and we would visit a town for some random reason, personal reason, like there's a marriage in the family or something, and we travel some distance, then the discussion would be after the function or something was over is who is the noble, who is the sadhu living in this town? Where is their satsang? Because not only would my Guru Baba meet them or knew of them, but that we children of the family, we grown-ups of the family would go and sit down soberly, quietly, and receive a few gems. We were established in our own lineage, but we bowed to any great teacher who offered the true satsang. So this is his concluding words is get the knowledge through satsang, through the company of the wise. O madman, calm down. So now his students are continuing, and these are all authored by different students. And there is a cluster of ideas that are forming. So I will chant 3 verses now for you. Jatilo mundi lunchit kesham kashayambar bahukita vesha. This is verse 14. Jatilo mundi lunchita kesha kashayambar bahukita vesha Pashyannapi jana pashyati muda udaranimittam bahukrita veshaha Pashyannapi jana pashyati muda udaranimittam bahukrita veshaha. Verse 15. Angam galitam palitam mundam dashana vihinam jatam tundam angam galitam palitam mundam dashana vihinam jatam tundam vriddho yati गृहीत्वा दण्डं वृद्धो याति गृहीत्वा दण्डं तदिपि न मुञ्चति आशापिण्डं तदपि न मुञ्चति आशापिण्डम् verse 16 अग्नेवहनि पृष्ठे भानु रात्रौ चुबक समर्पित जानुः अग्नेवहनि पृष्ठे भानु रात्रौ चुबक समर्पित जानु करतल भीक्षा तरुतलवासा तदपि न मुञ्चति आशापाशः करतलभीक्षः तरुतलवासा तदपि न मुञ्चति आशापाशः. So what do we find in these verses? We find the description of millions of yogis and sadhus and wise men. They've traditionally been men who can be found roaming about in India. If you go today, if you descend from the airport, you won't have to go 100 meters before you chance upon a holy man. They would have dreadlocks, they would be wearing orange, red, white, yellow, different colored robes connected with different lineages, and they would be wearing dramatic tilaks. They would have ash rubbed over them. They may be even having a snake wrapped around them like snake, and they look quite impressive. But Shankaracharya has an opinion about that. Shankaracharya's students, which must be Shankaracharya's opinion, have this to say in verse 14, that these are ascetics who they have renounced ordinary life. You can't find them going to work. You don't find them settling down with partners. You don't see them raising the next generation. You don't see them paying the taxes. They're very much living off the curve, off the edge, into the unknown, and they're wanderers. They travel from pilgrimage town to pilgrimage town, river to river. And in India, every few miles, we have something sacred going on. And that's where they are clustered in Varanasi, in Rishikesh, in Gaya, in Allahabad. They are all in these different places, in the spiritual places, um, outside the Meenakshi temple. And, they're just all over. South India, North India, East India, West India. They are being called to Ishvara. Okay, they are being called to Govinda. In fact, sometimes if you go to them and if you give them an arm, they will say Govinda, Govinda, may Govinda bless you. Or they will say Hari Om Tat Sat. They will say it and they will say it in a much more beautiful fashion than your teacher says it. However, this verse says that the ascetic with often matted locks, or sometimes they have their shaven head, so they look like a monk, like a Buddhist monk. Or sometimes they have their hair pulled one by one by one. There are some ascetics who hurt their body to show the supremacy of the spirit. So they pull their hair out. It's kind of a tapas that they believe in. or they wear different colored robes. There is a commentary on them in this verse 14, which says that they are, unfortunately, they are moodaha, they are deluded. Bhaja Govindam is for moodhas. Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Moodamate. So unfortunately, though being God men, these are completely deluded fools. Because the key line here is Pashyannapi chana pashyati moodaha. That despite seeing the reality, they do not see it. And then the last line say, Udara means stomach. Udara nimittam bahukritvesha. Most of us are working for, we get up and the business of life is about filling the stomach. Whether we run a major corporation or whether we stay married to a provider of our food, whatever is happening. The point is, we are filling our stomachs in an honest manner, right? That's an important reality. These people say that they have renounced the world, but this verse says that though they have these matted locks and this elaborate look of being a god man, ultimately, these robes, and the word used is this kind of disguise. It's disguising the fact that they are simply filling their belly. They're simply filling their belly because people pay them alms or give them food wherever they show up. They are respected because they are considered closer to God. But probably what these verses are trying to clarify is that these are not the people you should have satsang with. Probably that is what we are being told, that these are the wannabe teachers and noble sadhus, but a sadhu cannot be known simply by their elaborate sadhu hairstyle. If you look up sadhu and do an image search, you will come across these sadhus, and they look very impressive. In fact, they're so impressive and they have so captured the imagination of people who've been to India or who live in India that they would look at an ordinary person and who is teaching the Vedas and Upanishads and say, well, you don't look spiritual. You don't look it. And now there is a trend, even in the West, of people who follow Indian teachings to look like that, to have the dreadlocks and to wear, different types of outfits. A whole New Age movement seems to copy them. But they are simply in a disguise, says this book, Udara nimittam, simply to serve their stomach. Bahukrita vesha, they are wearing these different clothes. And often these people, they spend a whole lifetime doing this. And so there are numerous old people, older people who should typically have more wisdom and they by this stage, but they are, according to verse 15, Angam Galitam, the body is weakening. Palitam Mundam, the head's becoming bald. Dashana Vihinam Jatam Tandam. Sometimes they are toothless and they're also holding on to some makeshift crutch. But then what does this verse say? Tadapina munchati asha pindam. Asha is desire. But even then, in their heart, they have not let go of this pindam, this collection of desires. And these are all worldly desires. These are all desires for their path of wealth is through this process. Now, this is not just for them. This is for all of us. We too may wear spiritual garbs. Please understand, going back to verse 14. I could be wearing a spiritual garb right now, and you could be wearing a spiritual garb. And garb is not just clothes here, but just the outfit in our life, the beliefs in our life. We could be totally doing that, and we could be aging every day, pretending to ourselves that we are spiritual. But the fact is that we are heavy with the bag of desires for the wealth and for the lover. For the love, I want to be materially secure and I want to be emotionally secure. And that's all we seek all the time. And so typically when it's winter in India, these sadhus, they're on the roads, they're on the streets. They are they have more respect than the beggar. I mean, the beggars, I'm saying everybody's respectful, but they get a little more respect than the ordinary street beggar. The ordinary street beggar is shooed away because people are callous to them. But these kind of sadhus and yogis, because they're wearing robes, they are not shooed away. People are afraid of them and they kind of have some mixed feelings towards them. And so if they'll be wandering around in the streets and then they will find some fire, wood, and in winters they would burn a bonfire on the sides of the roads and the parks and in between houses and near the river banks, and they would sit there around it. And you would think they're talking about Govinda, God, discussing Bhaja Govindam. Probably not. And so we have in verse 16 this interesting imagery. Agne vahani prishte bhanu ratro chubaka samarapita janu. Behold, there sits a holy man, warming up his body with the fire in the front. So he's seeking what? Comfort. And sun at the back, So every which way, this person has said, I have renounced the comforts of the world. But what are they seeking? They are yet back again, dependent on their senses being comfortable. Then probably we are more honest who turn on the heat and put up our velvety comforters. We are at least more honest about it. At night, and then it says that at night, this man curls up his body to keep out the cold. And then in the morning, he sets out with a begging bowl, because this was started by, this is not a Vedic tradition. This started later in India, of renouncing, not mentally, but physically. So now I'm not going to cook, and I'm now and now the universe should feed me, which really means I'll just become a liability, walk around with a begging bowl, and everybody will have to feed me in the name of Govinda, God. So he goes from home to home begging for food, sleeps beneath the tree also at night. But then the last line, it still in his heart, he is going through so many hardships, this poor thing. He's a wretched puppet at the hands of his desires. He still hopes maybe the next house I knock, I will get some, basmati rice pulao. Maybe the next person who gives me a dakshina, a donation in my begging bowl, would not be 10 rupee note, but 1,000 rupee note. These desires, maybe the next door I knock to, They might give me a blanket. So desires are not ending. Are these people any peaceful? Because they have renounced the world. And in a way, through these three verses, we are being guided to not look towards such role models who have done outer renunciation. We not only, these are the sad kinds, these are the pathetic kinds who are shivering and cold and poor and hungry. We also have the rich kind of spiritual god men who are wearing elaborate low robes and who are driving in elaborate cars, and they are talking about spirituality, but are they free from desires? Because true, probably these three verses, what are they asking us to look at? They're asking us to look at what is vairagyam or true renunciation and sannyasa. Sannyasa means the way of life which is renounced. What is true sannyasa? Because we call saints sannyasi. So, how do you become a sannyasa? Because I know I'm a sannyasi, but I live in a beautiful home. I use a laptop to talk to you. When this class is done, I will eat a warm, fresh cooked Navratri meal made in ghee, which is one of the most elite substances to ingest in your mouth. Then how is it that I can claim to sannyasa and you can claim to sannyasa? How is it? Because what true sannyasa is has nothing to do with the outer symbols. And this a lot of people need to hear. In fact, I'm going to quote from you from a Gita, Avadhut Gita, where Avadhut Gita is the Gita of a self-realized sage who says that, in fact, all these things that we think are important are unimportant for realization of the God and self. And he says, Vedo na diksha na cha mundan kriya shishyo na cha yantra sampada mudradikam chapi na yatra bhasate tamishmatmanamupayati shashvatam. That indeed you can attain to the supreme eternal truth, God and self, which is one in the Vedas, even without the Veda, without initiation as a student, without shedding your hair to become a monk, without guru, without any disciples, without perfect symbolic mudras, without hand postures. This is, in a way, he's wiping clean the slate. While we hold all these things to value, it's fascinating that he's wiping this clean clean slate, because in a way, by doing that, in Avadhut Gita, we are being told that this is being told to those students who are holding on to outer things in samsara, that renunciation, sannyasa on the path of self-realization is not about outward appearances. You can hold all the mudras you want, you can be all the shishya you want, you can be all the guru you want, you can make your hair bald and travel around like little Buddha in the world. You can wear red and pink and yellow and white and be respected just on your appearance. But nothing is meaningful, because renunciation, true renunciation, is about the inner realization that I am the self, I am not limited to the body. Until and unless you renounce this body identity, unless you announce its body's relationships. They are there, but they are not the most important piece of you until and unless you move into this param relationship with Govinda and self. Until then, there is no renunciation. So it's a very bold thing to say. It wipes clean the slate, but yet maybe that needs to be done for those who think I have arrived because I'm the Shishya of so and so, or I'm the guru now and I have, let me calculate these many students. None of this matters. None of this matters. Or I can hold the mudra for 2 hours. Ooh, can feel the blue light and the red light. Let it go. Nothing matters because you're still in the body. And so there is this verse, which I have no idea how to chant because I don't know its meter, but I will say it to you. And it is from Jivan Muktananda Lahiri. I have some idea how to chant it, of course. Kadapya Shavasa Kwachitapi Chida Kwachitapi Cha Divyambardhara क्वचित्य पंचस्योत्थाम त्वचमपि दधाना कटितटे मनस्वी निसंगा सजन हृदयानंद जनको मुनिर्नाव्यामो व्यामोहम भजति गुरुदीक्षा शततमाः. So it is describing those people who are renounced, who are really truly internally in a state of vairagyam. They are truly not colored by samsara. What do they look like? Well, sometimes they walk around naked, and sometimes they are dressed in costly robes and clothes and silks. What does it mean? It doesn't matter what they wear. Sometimes they wear the tiger skin around their waist, and sometimes they are wearing silks. But what do they have in common? They have a restrained mind. The mind is not jumping here and there with every desire. They have a pulled in mind. And they are in a state of vairagyam. They're not being colored. And it says they are gladdening the heart of the good. All spiritual people don't please everyone. But the good people, when they see them, they feel the happiness. And then it says, this sage, this is the true sadhu, this sage, Muni, M-U-N-I, Muni is another word for sage or sadhu. This sage, with ignorance or maya or avidya dispelled by Guru's grace. So now we bring in the Guru again. By Guru's diksha. Diksha means initiation into knowledge. Diksha is a very important concept in the Vedas. So this sage, with ignorance dispelled by Guru's Diksha, is not at all deluded. This is the worst person who is quite different. And see his indifference to clothes, see his indifference to everything external, but the mind is obeying the soul, the master. This is true sannyasa. Dehabhyaso hi sannyaso nevakashaya vasasam naham deho hamatmeti nishchayo nyasalakshanam. This is another verse from an important stotram called Sadachar Anusandhanam, and which says renunciation is not about outward appearances. It is the inner realization that you are the self, not the body. So this is what we are looking at in these three verses. We saw the description of these ultimately empty, not the healthy empty, but the tragically, materially empty, holy people. And we have them in every religion. We have them near every pilgrimage site all over the world. We have these people who are wearing robes, but they cannot keep the dignity of the robes. Why? Because their mind is out of control. We've had that in the church, we've had that in the ashrams, we've had that in the temples, we've had them in amongst monks, whether it is the Buddhist tradition or the Jaina tradition, we've had all that. And it is because their mind was not renounced. Their mind was still thinking, how can I sleep with a good-looking student? How can I enjoy a more comfortable life? And so it was not truly about service. It was not truly about dharma. It was never truly about moksha. Once again, we turn to Bhagavad Gita. And it always gives us guidance. And so in chapter 5, verse 3, we come across Geyam Sanitya Sannyasi Yona Dveshti Na Kankshati Nirdando Hi Mahabhao Sukham Bandhat Pramuchyate. And this verse describes the yogi, the truly realized, who is the true sannyasi. These are, they have perfected Karma Yoga, and they are, one thing we notice in them is that when they want something, desire is natural, but they don't desire it to the point that they can't let go or change their direction. They're not desiring something so much, and nor are they not desiring something so much. So, what is the kind of mindset? For the more evolved person, evolved seeker, it is typically more relaxed, more in between, more neutral. Because why? Because they are following the will of the universe. I myself in my life sometimes start a certain way, walk 5 steps, and realize, no, that is not what the universe wants of me. And and at that time you drown the desire. You just let it go. You just let it fall away. And you have to have, but if the desire is so hard, it will push you, it will make you be resentful, it will make you upset, it will make you try this way or that way. You will always be in some mental shenanigan, and the desire will keep changing its form and creep up on you, but it will never go because that's the nature of vasana or trishna, and we've discussed that. So in my own life, I try to look at if a certain desire is becoming too strong, because then that desire takes you down the slippery slope. The desire to be, I must be physically comfortable. I must be always healthy. I must always look young. Why is this wrinkle showing up? That wrinkle showing up? Why is this gray hair? Don't be too much this way and too much that way. That is what Krishna is telling us. And indeed, the sadhus who have perfected Karma Yoga itself are become like that. This is a verse on Karma Yoga. They become free from dualities, and so they are liberated from the material bonds of samsara. So become the true knower of Govinda, the true bhakta. Become a true knower of Atma. You don't need to necessarily, you can wear and announce this to the world. Yeah, you may wear some insignia that is important to you, like a mala or something which is part of your lineage or your parampara, but it need not be something that without which you're so fused with that. That should not be the case, because then you are rebuilding your spiritual brand around your outer appearance, outer behavior. Oh, I don't cook at home. Now I beg. So now I'm spiritual. Shankaracharya also begged, by the way. So I'm not condoning that. What does it mean by begged? Shankaracharya, when he was traveling through the mountains and he was traveling the length and breadth of India from the tips in South Kanyakumari to the tip in North Kashmir, and he did it twice with his students. They don't have a place to cook. There were no hotels back then in the 8th century. Would go from place to place and he would be fed, or if they were really hungry, they would knock at a door and explain themselves and be fed. So, but when you make that your support, when you do that as your sole indicator of your spiritual freedom, your lifestyle has changed, hence you're more spiritual, then there is a problem. Now let's talk about an important line in verse 14, which says that Pashyanapi chana pashyati mudaha, which means though you are seeing, you do not see. This is an important line to discuss before we conclude today's session. What does it mean you are seeing, but you are not seeing? See, the real seeing does not happen with these eyes. These can delude you. Somebody can look very spiritual to us, somebody can sound very spiritual to us, somebody can show us the way, but we end up losing our way. So eyes don't necessarily, our five senses necessarily don't help us perceive accurately. It is with the eyes of Vidya or knowledge, it is with the ears of Vidya that you can really hear what has to be heard. You can really see what has to be seen. You can really know that. That is why it is said, Nasti Vidya Samam Chakshu. Chakshu means eyes. There is no eye equivalent to the knowledge of the Shastra, the scriptures. That is the meaning of Vidya. Only Vidya. This right now you are being enabled to hear correctly, to see correctly, and to know correctly, and to correct all the misperceptions. Otherwise, if we just see with our eyes what's happening in social media, what's happening on television, and what's happening in magazines, and what's happening on billboards, then we will create a different understanding of what should be our goals, and we will lose ourselves in the material jungle out there. So it is through the eyes of Vidya that we come across this teaching. And this is a profound statement from Shankaracharya. Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. Satya means truth. So, and Brahma means Govinda, reality, consciousness, Atman. Brahman here, Brahma means Brahman, and it represents the ultimate reality, super self. The self within and the supreme self outside is one. It's invisible, but it's the only real thing. And Jagan here means Jagat means the world. And the word to describe it, the adjective to describe it is mithya. So there is a difference between satya and mithya. Like, for example, a cup is made with clay. So we have a cup of clay, we have a spoon of clay, we have a plate of clay, and it's beautiful. But when it breaks and over years and decades, it will erode, it will come back to clay. So but in this example, clay is satyam or truth. It always is there. The cup, the spoon, the plate, the pot, these are all mithya because they come into being and then they dissolve back into the clay. They only have a temporary reality. They are like in the billions and trillions of years of the universe, they have a very small lifetime. Similarly, within you, you too are also made up of satyam and mithya. There is something eternal within you, that is your Atma. That is the spark of Govinda within you. That was there before you took on this body. That is there expressing itself. It is the life principle through this body. And it will be there when the body is lying down dead. You will be there. So that part of you is Satyam. And everything else, including the body and the relationships of the body, they are all Mithya. My father is 92, and I ask him when he looks back at his life, what does he see? And he sees this army of people that he knew since he was a baby, a toddler, a teenager, a youth, a man, an older man, an old man, and a really old man. And they're all now gone. It feels like a dream. So this is all mithya. So everything around us, which seems permanent, is only having a temporary life. You go back to a town that you loved every street, every alley, it changes every couple of years. Cities change, nations change, geographically, continents change, and Earth also combusts from time to time. It goes into ice age, now it's becoming hotter. Nothing is permanent. So it has a reality, but it is mithya. So mithya is wrongly translated as illusion. An illusion is completely a fabrication of the mind. A mithya means it has some reality, enough to make you reactive, possessive, or upset, but it doesn't have a permanent reality. So why not step back from it? It too shall pass. A lot of our life circumstances are mithya. This body is mithya. You are an eternal being. So this knowledge is really important. That is why we cannot see, we get caught up in the world of mithya. I want you to remember this. If you're going to continue studying with me, then Brahma Satyam, Jagan Mithya, and it's very important for you to remember. And you can use it when you're getting caught up here and there. It's not mithya. So when you're more established in Satyam, then you will chant Govinda. You will be in a state of bhakti and jnana to be more here than to be so in mithya. We're all living in mithya. We're all using mithya things. We're all in mithya houses. We're encased inside mithya bodies. But we are very grateful that we are studying Shastra, Vidya that is liberating us from this entrapment in mithya. It's like this thick dream of bitter molasses that's all around us, bittersweet molasses. Sometimes sweet, sometimes bitter, but it's thick. And that's why simply changing the shape of your hair, wearing a couple of tilaks on your head, or wearing bigger and bigger um, turbans and robes and outfits and hairstyles and snakes around you, or um, I lit 1,000 candles and I chanted Hail Marys 1,000,000 times. Mithya. And that is why those spiritual people who use mithya to promote themselves or their version of teaching, we have a word for them. We call them mithyachari. Who is a mithyachari? Whose acharana, whose behavior is full of mithya. So with this, I conclude today's session. I believe that on the first day of Navratri, on which I am teaching this, whatever we have learned from the great teacher, Shankaracharya, will become exponentialized with Divine Mother's blessings. Many, many blessings. Take care. From Mithya to Satyam. From Ahankara, the ego, to Govinda, the ultimate being. May this be our journey. Take care.